matter what, people will commit to misunderstanding you. What's most important is your commitment to understanding yourself. Hello, you guys. My name is Nkirka Madani, known as NK, and welcome back to Misunderstood. Your friends aren't really your friends. And that first friends is in quotes. Because there are some times in your life, unfortunately, you will be surrounded by people who will make you feel lonely on purpose, who do not have your best intentions at heart, who could honestly, deep down, care less about you. A lot I want to say in this episode, and I realize that I've been stressing myself out about this topic for a while now because I want to get it right. But I realize that I can break this up in multiple episodes and shed light on them when I see fit. So I'm just going to say this is part one of I have no idea how many, but I definitely want to touch on and highlight friendships a bunch on this podcast because friendships are very, very, very integral to the human experience, yet a lot of us struggle with friendships, and I have a long history of struggling with specifically female friendships for various reasons that I want to break down in not only this episode, but in future episodes. I want to shed light on this topic specifically because I know how much I've struggled with it, but I know that by sharing my thoughts as well as how I've navigated it throughout the years, this will help someone else who has felt the exact same way, who has felt lonely and scared, who has felt lost with friendships, who has felt like they're not going to find their people. I have felt every single one of these feelings around friendships over the last decade of my life. So I do think I have a lot I can share here and hopefully a lot of really good insight and takeaways for you. I had the most friends in my life when I hated myself, when I didn't know my self-worth. And now I have the least amount of friends, and this is at the most confident and most assured version of myself. I believe that the misunderstanding here is that people will misunderstand you and think that you are, quote, acting too good for them, when in reality, they don't want to do the work on themselves, and it's easier for them to hurt you and bring you down to their level to make them feel more comfortable. So now let's go back in time. I had a friend group in college. Most of them were from out of the country. And I know a lot of people have friends from different states, but me, this was out of the country friends, meaning we all went to school at the University of San Francisco. However, their home base, where they are born and raised, where they grew up, was out of the country. This was really hard for me to accept because I thought, when am I going to see them again after graduation? I remember getting very insecure during college after that realization because I didn't know if I was going to have friends post-graduation. Granted, yes, we can obviously all stay in touch after graduation. However, I knew that we were all going to go our separate ways, and it definitely just naturally fizzled post-graduation. But that insecurity of mine led to me joining a sorority. So I joined a sorority junior year of college. I knew a lot about sororities before joining, and that's actually why I didn't join a sorority right off the bat in college, because I didn't feel like that was truly me. I didn't feel like I aligned with a sorority. However, it came to junior year, and I remember thinking to myself, I need more friends. I need to find friends who hopefully are going to be in the country so that we can keep in touch more regularly after graduation. I joined this sorority. I quickly realized that even though I was going through the motions, I was going through the motions for all the wrong reasons. So many girls in the sorority were really toxic and not good people. And then also, there was so much drama between so many of the girls that it did not make it a great environment to be in. Once I became a senior, I didn't really go to any events anymore. Yet I was still officially in the sorority. I just didn't really participate in anything. And the things that I did participate in, it felt very forced. It felt like I was in spaces just to say that I had friends, quote unquote, meaning they weren't really friends. No one really knew that much about me. It felt like it was all for show. And that is the shittiest feeling because we all just want friends. We all want people who see us for who we are. We all want people who actually give a shit if we're doing okay. And we all want friends who will go the distance, meaning take away all of the factors that bind you. Will we go the distance. It was safe to say that post graduation, I did not keep in contact with anybody in my sorority. They also did not keep in contact with me. I also want to drive the point home that friendship is a two-way street. If you feel like you are doing all the heavy lifting in a friendship, that is not a friendship. A friendship is reciprocal by definition. You give some, they give some, you share, they share. You're there for them, they're there for you. That's how it works. And if it does not feel like that, then that is not a real friendship and you deserve better. All right, now we are in post grad. I got a job offer to work at an accounting firm right after graduation. Some of the people from college who were in my accounting classes, we were all placed in the same office. So I did have some of those friends at the accounting job. So we became a little cohort. It was us plus the other people who were in our grades who had also just graduated from college. We were all there. Let's say that there were probably 8 or 9 of us who were pretty close. We did our first busy season together. We would go on weekend trips. We would hang out at each other's apartments. Things seemed pretty good. It wasn't until the second year of being at the job where cliques started forming. It came to a point where I felt like I wasn't cool enough to be a part of the group. There were instances of me being left out of hangouts, them going to lunch without me, and I get it. There are times where you will click better with other people. That has happened to me in many times in my life where someone introduces me to a friend and I end up clicking better with that friend than the original person who connected us. And that's life, and you just accept that and move on. But this situation felt very catty where, again, we were only 23, 24. We were still very young and we were all on the same playing field. We were all doing the same job, but I felt very singled out. I don't want to play the race card. I really don't, but I was the only Black girl in my little cohort of people. And I don't know, I sometimes do think that that played some type of a role. The work I was doing was very white dominated. I also have to say that I wasn't as good at the job as some of the other people who were in my cohort. There were some of the smartest people who I had known who were alongside me, and there was some insecurity on my end where I didn't feel like I could measure up in a work sense with them. So they were off doing their own thing and I was off kind of just doing my own thing, but always yearning for that sense of fitting in and that sense of community, but I never got that at the job. I remember this one day in specific, I was working late and I was waiting for one of the guys in the cohort to text me saying, hey, like we're going to go out to drinks, because that's what I thought that we were all doing. But at the corner of my eye, while I'm still working, I saw that him and 2 of the other people in my cohort were walking to the elevator, and I look over and he looks at me, he doesn't say anything, and they all just leave. That was such a big pit in my stomach. That made me feel so shitty because people are quite literally having hangouts without me, getting to know each other better, forming stronger friendships, and I felt like I was being left out. And that sucks. That sucks to feel like you are left out. That sucks to be left out and to be the one who is not chosen and to be the one who is not thought of and to be the one who is truly an afterthought. That was me when I was working at that job. Fast forward a year. It is my 25th birthday and I wanted to do something really fun and really special. I rented a yacht to take us around the San Francisco Bay, and it took us also under the Golden Gate Bridge. It was sick. I planned this whole huge party. This was the biggest thing I've ever planned in my life, still to this day. But the boating company said that I need at least 50 people to have this party happen, essentially. Or I think it was to get the price to what it was. Like that was the minimum that it could be. So I had to get at least 50 people to make up the money back. At the time, I have to say, I did have a lot of friends. Well, so I thought. I had, quote, friends, people who I thought of as a friend, but I didn't really know their intentions for the most part. And I didn't know if they thought of me as an actual friend. However, we got 50 people on this boat and we sailed around and we had a great time. And I was looking at that photo not too long ago and I realized I am not friends with anybody in that photo. And you know why? It is because so many people turned out to be fake. So many people were actually not my friend. And a lot of people talk shit behind my back. A lot of people were there for clout or for status or whatever. A lot of the people in that photo were only friends with me because I was drinking heavily at that time, or there was a few guys there who I had hooked up with, so that was that connection, or there were friends of friends and people who I didn't really know personally. I, at that time, was more concerned with the optics of having friends than really understanding if these people are actually my friends. Like I said, I was 25. So 5 years ago, that was my mindset. I was way more concerned of it needs to look like there's so many people here so that people think that I have so many friends. But in reality, I am really struggling with friendships. And I am mainly struggling because so many people are only friends with me for certain reasons, or only friends with me because they want to party, or only friends with me because we work together. But when it comes down to it, are we really friends? I want to stop here and kind of dive a little bit into friendships where I understand that a friend doesn't have to be everything, which is true, which is honestly the healthiest way to look at it. A friend does not have to be your everything. And actually, it shouldn't be your everything. I learned that in therapy, where you should have categories and buckets of friendships, meaning you have friends for different areas of your life. Say you love working out, you can have workout friends. Say if you meet a friend once a month to go on a walk, that's perfectly normal and healthy. You have friends at work, you have hometown friends, you have XYZ, the list goes on. You get what I mean. You have friends for different areas of your life, and all of them are important, and all of them have different degrees of priorities in your life based on you. But what I'm trying to drive home here is that the people who were on that boat in that time of my life, they were only in my life for a specific reason. And once that reason got taken away, we didn't have any foundation to stand on. Now, fast forward a few more years. This is my friend group that I had in San Francisco a year before I moved to New York City. So this was a friend group of five. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. This was a friend group of 6 people. So this was back in 2021, post my long-term breakup. I was in a really, really low place, mostly from the breakup. There was a friend group who I had been hanging out with in 2020, but in 2021, the only thing that was binding our friendship was drinking, which was obviously not healthy looking back, but I'm sharing this for educational purposes. We would only hang out in a drinking capacity. And I want to be very, very clear. We would never talk about anything of substance. And there was a point in 2021 where I was just so miserable and I hated myself and I was so sad and lonely that I didn't even care that these people weren't good for me. I just fed into it because I didn't have anyone else to lean on at the time. 2021 came and went, lots of drinking, lots of really, honestly, scary nights of being way too drunk. And I'm not proud of that. All of that is to say, at the end of 2021, and if you listened to one of my earlier episodes, I talked about my complete rebrand at the end of 2021 because I looked at my life and I realized that I was not happy. There were so many things that were unsettling with how I was living my life, and I wanted a change and I wanted to be better for myself and for my health. I took back charge of myself. End of 2021, I just completely hit the reset button on my life. I stopped drinking for most of 2022. I remember hanging out with those friends probably a few months into 2022. I remember telling them, hey, I'm not drinking. I am on this health journey and it's just making me feel better right now. And this is why, da da da. And I remember getting literally peer pressured to drink after saying that, after telling them my reasonings. And you would think that, quote, friends would respect your boundaries and would not only respect them, but encourage you to be better and be a healthier version of yourself. You would think friends would do that, right? Unfortunately, these friends were not those type of friends. That was a huge indicator for me that I could not continue to be friends with this friend group. I also vividly remember this one day where we were all walking throughout the Mission in San Francisco, and this was on a Sunday. We had gone to Dolores Park. We were walking around. This is all still me on my no drinking journey. And I remember telling them, hey, I would love to go to the farmer's market next week. I heard that it was in this area. I was explaining it, and literally it was silent. I got no response for bringing that up, and I went home that night, and I don't know why that was the nail in the coffin, and I don't know why that was the revelation, but I realized that not only are these people very negative and they always talk shit about people and they always gossiped and they always drank and they didn't want to do anything wholesome, and I wanted to do wholesome things. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to talk shit, but they did. That obviously is a mismatch. And that obviously means that you cannot continue to be in this negative cycle. You need to step away and distance yourself and not be friends with them. And I know a lot of people can take this very polarizing. I think that's what people are going to misunderstand with this episode and this topic is, well, you think that you're better than them. No, I don't think that I'm better than them. I just know what I need in my life right now. And I had actively seen when I brought up things that mattered to me, they were immediately put down or ignored. And so why would I continue to put myself through that? No person with common sense would continue to put themselves through that. So I needed to take back my power. I needed to set clear boundaries, which I did. And I distanced myself from that friend group from then on. And then what is actually really funny about that friend group in specific is that 3-4 months later after that, there was a situation where one of the girls in the friend group who was particularly the meanest and just such a negative person, she got into it with me. And I told her, no, this is not happening. I am not going to put myself through this. And I very openly and publicly in front of all of the friends in that friend group shared my experience with this girl and said, hey, for all of these very valid reasons, I cannot be friends with you anymore. And I left it at that. That mic drop moment, I was really proud of because it took a lot for me to get to a place where I felt like I would rather be alone than be uncomfortable with people who are making me feel negative or are adding more negativity into my life. I would rather be alone. That just showed that I have self-respect, and that takes time. That took me years to get there, but it showed that when you are around people who actually are good for you, you will feel good after. I would always go home after hanging out with that group and be mentally and physically drained. Physically drained because I'm probably hungover from all the drinks that we had. There were so many times I blacked out, and I'm embarrassed about that. But you know what? This was years ago, so we grow up and we mature. But I think back to that time in my life, I was physically drained. I was spending a shit ton of money that I shouldn't have, really recklessly. And then also I was mentally drained. I was so unhappy and so sad. I wanted to talk to these people about my life and things that were happening in my life, good and bad, but I couldn't. Those were not the type of people who I could find comfort in. And that is a really important thing about friendships, where if you don't feel comforted in certain people, that is a telltale sign that you should not be friends with them, that they are not for you. And let me also say, just because someone is not a friendship match for you does not make them a bad person. They are not bad people. They are just not my people. Say that again. They are not bad people. They are just not my people. I mean, some of the things that some of them did were bad and I got apologies, whatever, but they're meant for other friendships and other people. And I am also meant for other friendships and other people. Those two things can exist. The last thing I want to talk about in this segment of friendships is watch out for the people who are secretly or not so secretly intimidated by you. Because if you're intimidated, that means you are insecure. And if you're insecure, that is not the other person's problem. That's something that you have to take control of and take accountability for. There was a friend who I made in 2021 in San Francisco. She was also a content creator, which was fun for me because I did not know any other content creators in San Francisco. San Francisco is just not a place where that is a prominent field. But I met her and she seemed really cool. Then we started hanging out. She introduced me to a lot of her friends. There was a situation where she introduced me to one of her friends in specific, and then us three became a little group. And I have this rule of threes where I just fully believe that most friendships of three don't work out so well. Someone prove me wrong. I would love to hear of super successful three group girl friendship. I have just seen in my life, but not only my life, I've seen some other people's friendships play out where someone in the three always feels intimidated or always feels insecure or always feels a little jealous of the other two's connection. That's usually how it is. So that's where it all started. This girl introduced me to her friend, and then we became a little trio. Me and the friend she introduced me to, we were instantly super compatible. We were both really bubbly, really energetic, and I rarely find people like that. So I found that to be really exciting. And I was really happy that I found someone who, quote, matched my energy, because that's how it felt. So whenever we hung out, I just naturally veered to the friend. I am not saying that I would ignore the other girl. Absolutely not. We would all be hanging out. But you just know, the girls who get it, get it. You just know when you're talking and you're vibing. It just is really clear when two people are more connected. A few weeks later, we all went to a Giants game, and this was also a few days before I was flying to New York City to go to my very first New York Fashion Week. I was so excited, given a lot of people who I tell about this, they don't understand it because they're not in the field, and that's okay, but I would think that someone who's a content creator would understand how amazing this is and would be genuinely supportive. So I told them both at the same time at the game. And the other girl, who's not a content creator, was so genuinely happy for me, and I really appreciated that. And then the girl who's a content creator, she literally said, "Oh, I'll do that next year. No congratulations. No, I'm so proud of you. No, that's great." Anything of that sort. It was just very selfish. She took it very selfishly, and I feel like her response was solely out of jealousy, which is so unfortunate. And it was very eye-opening because after I had went to New York Fashion Week and came back, I think a few weeks after that trip, me and her hung out one-on-one. It was actually stemmed from her texting me a few days before we hung out in person saying, "Hey, I noticed you and her friend were getting along really well, and I'm really happy that you are, but it also does seem like you guys are way closer than you and me. So let's hang out." That text was very telling. That text was extremely telling because you know when you already have inklings and you have a gut feeling that something feels off, that fully confirmed it. A few days later, I went over to her apartment and it was just her and I talking. I felt a little uncomfortable at the beginning, and I further felt uncomfortable when she told me that she felt intimidated by me. She quite literally told me she was intimidated by me. And from that point on, in my head, I realized that I cannot be friends with this person. I cannot be friends with a person who feels like they are in constant competition with me, that they feel like my light is threatening them in some way, when in reality, I am who I am. And if you're uncomfortable by that, that is a you problem. That is not my problem. Have you ever been made to feel like your light is an issue or needs to be dimmed to make someone else feel more comfortable? That's crazy. You show up as you and you show up with your full chest. The people around you will celebrate you if they're genuine good people, and you will be able to assess whether someone is really there for you and if someone is really your friend or if someone is actually secretly a hater, which she definitely was. It's extremely hard to be around people who make you feel like you're doing something wrong by simply existing, because that is exactly what was happening. I was just existing as myself, and this girl felt so threatened by me and my existence and how I chose to show up in the world, which is so frustrating. And all I could think is, wow, I have felt this before. I have felt the presence of other people making me feel uncomfortable by being me. They feel like being my friend is a threat to them. Being my friend takes away from their successes. And all of that categorizes into a insecure person and an insecure friendship. And those people really need to work on themselves and to develop a more secure style of how they are a friend, which has nothing to do with you. That is the misconception within us. I've felt this so many times. I have misunderstood these situations so many times. I have thought, oh, wow, this is my fault. We're not friends because of me. No, that's not true. You are showing up as you. You did not do anything wrong. You will understand the difference so clearly when you are around people who lift you up and celebrate you. People who, when you tell something good, they will celebrate your successes. They will congratulate you and they will not find any way to make it about them. And what I will say is if you are in a type of situation like this where you have been made to feel like you are wrong for showing up as you and simply just existing, take note of it and see if a pattern develops. A lot of the situations where I've encountered this in my life, I have literally seen patterns where I notice how people move and took note of it. When I was able to discern whether this was adding value or detracting from my life, then that is when I was able to appropriately move through the situation the best way for me. It's not going to be a cut and dry way for everybody. Yes, there is clear good and bad, right and wrong, but there are a lot of nuances, and I would definitely recommend to really listen to your gut and assess if you think that this person is someone who you can see in the longevity of your life. And you know what, maybe some of it might have been a misunderstanding. That is also very viable. But if you see it fit to have a conversation with that person to really understand where they're coming from, I absolutely encourage that. But if you also see a clear lack of respect or always feel this weird pit in your stomach around said people and quote friends, you should know that that is your sign to probably end the friendship, which is easier said than done. Friendship breakups are very, very hard and very uncomfortable. And arguably, I think they are more uncomfortable than a romantic breakup. But letting go of the negative and the weight and the baggage of other people will free you up to better opportunities, to better people, to leveling up your life. I leveled up in my life so many times, literally right after friendship breakups. Each and every one has brought me into a better chapter in my life. I feel like I've steadily unlocked higher and higher levels within myself and within my career and my opportunities right when I chose to walk away from people who didn't want to accept my spirit, all that I am. Because that's the other thing. A lot of people are not going to like you for various reasons, things that are completely out of your control. However, you aren't for everyone as well, and that's okay. We are not for everybody, but there are so many people who we are for. So the sooner you let go of the people who aren't for you, the sooner that you will find the people who are. And when you do find the people who are for you, it is the most exciting, melodious thing. You are so worth people's time. You are great. Do not let anyone make you feel differently, and definitely watch out for the quote friends who want to be around you for certain reasons or to get something from you. No, you do not need any of those type of people in your life. All that you need are people who you feel safe with and feel comfortable to expressing exactly who you are. People who are truly there for you. And I also want to end with quality over quantity. Yes, this is so cliche. Everyone talks about it. And this is going back to my story about the 50-person boat birthday party where I was concerned with quantity years and years ago, when I should have always been concerned with quality. Quality supersedes quantity every single time. And right now, I literally have 3 best friends, and I'm happy with that. Also, I don't have a lot of friends in New York, and that's okay. I have felt really insecure about that for a long time, but I realized that I will find friends in the pockets of my life where they're meant to fit. I don't need to go out of my way and force friendships. Literally never force anything, never force friendships, never force an opportunity. What's meant for you will never miss you. That is my favorite thing to say. You will always align with the people and the things and the opportunities that are for you, no matter what. They will never pass you by. As long as you are being authentically true to yourself and sticking true to who you are and never diverting from that for the sake of other people or to make other people feel more comfortable. As long as you stay true to who you are, you will find everything and anything that you want. Your most beautiful friendships are right around the corner. If you feel like you do not have your people, do not worry. I'm 30 years old right now. I definitely have not met every single person in my life that's going to make an impact on me. I absolutely know that I haven't, and you haven't either. So just hold out on all that is good because there's so much around the corner. And with that, thank you for listening to another episode of Misunderstood. I would love to hear your comments on this episode, so feel free to leave them down below. Remember to rate the podcast and follow it on Spotify. Hang out with me on my other socials, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest at nkmadani. And I will talk to you guys in my next one.